What's good, people? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop us a little like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we got new things dropping. Leave us a comment, it all helps with the algorithm and all that kind of thing. If you're listening on an audio platform like Spotify or Apple Music, why not drop us a 5-star review? It's just for algorithm reasons. I don't care if you slag me off in the actual review, but drop us 5 stars and that helps boost us. Anyway, this is Sinister Cinema, on with this show. Yes, people, Kinell's Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In their own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I've got a lot of love for Forgotten Sons Apparel. They've been supporting me since way before I was doing this. They were supporting me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms in battles on Don't Flop and other leagues. I'm delighted to have them as a sponsor for Kinell's Sinister Cinema, and I'm encouraging you all to check out their ish at forgottensonsapparel.bigcartel.com. Safe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to Kinell's Sinister Cinema, Mr. Robert Woods. How's it going?
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's great. It's fantastic to be able to get you on. Cheers for getting involved. Well, first of all, I suppose I better let the people know who you are. So, would you like to give the people a bit of a listing of your background and all that kind of thing?
Sure. My name is Robert Woods, and I am a filmmaker from Perth, Western Australia. I've been writing theatre shows for the last decade and working as an editor and trying to push more into the film sphere, and I've just finished my first feature film and hoping to do more.
Aye, that's fantastic, and I'm personally a really, really big fan of this film that you've that I believe is getting distribution in the US and Canada about now, and the rest of the world should be following suit.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. It's just come out at the end of January in the US and Canada. It's available now on video on demand and Blu-ray and DVD, and Gravitas Ventures, which is handling the distribution, is in charge of the worldwide distribution, and they'll be opening it out to other markets shortly.
That's fantastic. That film is, of course, An Ideal Host.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we probably should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry, I'm not too sharp at this time of the morning. We're doing unsociable hours. We've got to do this sort of thing. But yes, An Ideal Host. I saw this film as part of the So Home Horror Festival, and I became an incredible fan of it almost immediately. And I've pretty much spent the last year telling people, you've got to see this film. And they've been asking me, where can I see it? And they have been able to do that. So I'm absolutely delighted that that's something that people can get access to now, or at least very soon. So do you want to tell us about An Ideal Host?
Sure. An Ideal Host is a kind of horror comedy about a young woman that is trying to host a perfect dinner party with her boyfriend in their new farmhouse in rural Australia. She's invited a bunch of old friends over, where she is hoping to have the perfect evening and show them all that she's doing wonderfully. And the evening does not go as planned at all. An unexpected guest arrives and creates all sorts of havoc, and leading to almost an apocalypse, basically. Yeah, things get pretty messy and bloody.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I really appreciate that about the film, the way it starts off at such a domestic level and then expands out to like such a grand scale of chaos. But there's never really a sudden switch. It there's still dinner party issues going on while end of the world issues are starting to kick in, and that's something I really appreciate about it. It brings it makes the what takes place in the film like incredibly relatable.
Right.
So yeah,
There is a. I suppose we tried to make it so that it was a pretty much a slow ramp from the beginning of the film right through the end to the climax, that it would just keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And it definitely changes genres and tones kind of throughout the runtime. But hopefully it's done in a way that it feels like it doesn't just come out of nowhere, that it kind of flows from the last moment to the next one. But it works for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. So, your mileage may vary, but either way, hopefully it's a fun ride.
I'd certainly say you've achieved that. Yeah, it was very much a self-funded indie kind of operation, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, this film was made off of my own savings from working as an editor for the last couple of years. Um, Basically, I got a bunch of friends and rented out a farmhouse for 2 weeks and just took a little DSLR and a bunch of improv comedians that I'm friends with to this farmhouse, and we kind of figured out what we were doing while we were there. Yeah.
There was also a point in one of the So Homes where you effectively did a kind of a live commentary on it, and you were talking through the process, and I was really blown away at that point because I realized that how hands-on you were with it, like down to like individually painting effect shots out, like painting out eyelids and this kind of thing, like that. Like this really is very much your baby, like from the effects to the photography to the editing to you really had full control over it.
That's out of necessity and also out of desire to not be beholden to anyone else putting in money and time and effort. I couldn't really pay everyone that was involved because I just didn't have the money for it. And thankfully I've got a bunch of wonderful mates that were keen to help out just for the fun of it. But I have been building up the skills to be able to edit and shoot relatively cleanly exposed footage and do basic VFX and things like that, so that I could put the film together on my own time, just by myself, and not have to worry about hiring other people to help out, doing a lot of really hard, tricky work with semi-amateurish shot footage from myself. I would be embarrassed trying to give that to someone else to have to fix. Like I at the very least can fix my own mistakes. So writing music and putting the visual effects in and editing it all together, that was all really fun. The only thing I did get help with was the sound design and color grading at the end of it. I got some friends from work to help polish it off a little bit, just so that it was legible.
I certainly achieved that. It's one of those because like the detail and the love that's gone into it. You wouldn't guess that it was a small indie production unless you knew what you were looking for, and I only knew what I was looking for because you told me what to look for. It's an incredible professional piece of work. I think it's got quite a wide appeal to a lot of people. But you're very much like more so than like pretty much anyone I know. very much a man of the cinema. You're a man with a lot of influences. You check everything out, and so I'm interested in like what kind of films were like touch points for you in the process. What were your influences in making it?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I love cinema and I watch everything I can get my hands on. I don't really have a specific genre or style that is my favorite. Just like great stories well told. But for this film in particular, there were more specific touchstones, just given the kind of film it is. It's a kind of a bit of a schlocky grindhouse farce, dinner farce, which is an odd combination, but I think it works pretty well. And touchstones for that, definitely one was It's a Disaster, a kind of dinner table farce, end of the world farce that my writing partner Tyler Jacob Jones and I thought was hilarious. And The Invitation had just come out as well, and we really liked that. That was another one. And then in terms of like the more kind of cartoony camp gore style of things, there's like early Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson going on. I love Brain Dead, and
Oh yeah,
big fan of The Evil Dead. That very kind of do-it-yourself attitude, and yeah, just like throwing everything that you can at the screen and and trying to entertain people. That kind of old school putting on a show attitude. Yeah, it's something that I loved, that I thought we could do with no money, and just like a single location and some funny people. So that's what we went for.
yeah. It's remarkable how like advancements in technology mean that a film that's made in that kind of bad taste, Evil Dead, like put together with your own money on weekends, kind of thing. Like, those films used to look like that. It'd be grainy 16mm. It'd be,
Yeah.
You couldn't really do stuff with lighting in post, and everything would have to be done at the time. So
Yeah. Definitely more lucky that we can I can like post stabilize some pretty wobbly shots, or do some basic compositing to get some, some blood or puppets or makeup, or like just do a bit of a touch up here or there, just to help smooth things over a bit. That's always good. Occasionally there would be like, we didn't really have lights or anything, but occasionally there'd be like, a bit of equipment in the background or something, like, oh shit, I didn't see that when I was filming it. So I can like just paint that out. Yeah.
yeah, I have no idea how much that kind of stuff went on, and like obviously in previous years before we had access to like CGI and such things, you just have boom mics that'd pop into the shot and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I still watch my film and can see a bunch of that stuff is still in there. I didn't get rid of all of it. Certainly, there's like reflections or a boom shadow here or there, but hopefully it's nothing that stands out overtly that'll take you too much out of the film and the spirit of it.
Yeah. 2 weeks, like, it seems like an incredibly short amount of time to have to work with. Like,
Yeah, honestly, like, so we wrote a script. Like, we had the idea and we started writing the script maybe 3 months before we shot, and because we basically hired the location first, and I kind of just put down what I could afford and what seemed like a reasonable amount of time to shoot a feature film, that I could ask friends to give up over like the summer holidays here. I wouldn't want to ask them to spend more than 2 weeks for something that they're not really getting paid for. And also, like, I've never produced a feature film before. I don't know how to schedule things. I was literally looking at the script and breaking it down into scenes and thinking, how long does that take to shoot? A day? An hour? I don't know. I'll just say it'll take 3 hours to shoot this scene. Let's go with that. And I just scheduled the whole film like that. And in the actual shooting of it, I figured out that sometimes I got it very right and sometimes I was very wrong. And that was all just, part of the learning process of making your first feature film, not knowing quite what you're doing. There was a bit of scheduling issues with the cast because there's 7 of them, and not all of them were available for the whole time. Some of them were only available for a couple of days. So we just had to figure out when people were available towards the start, and then they would kind of just drop off, and we'd whittle the cast down, kind of like the film does as they get slaughtered off. And I am generally happy that I managed to schedule it so that we didn't have to ever do any super early mornings or super late nights. We never like shot through the night into the next morning. I was very conscious that I'm someone that likes sleep. I like my sleep in regular hours, and I don't like getting up early in the morning. So generally speaking, we would shoot from the afternoon through to about 10 o'clock at night, and then have time to pack up and have a good rest and get ready for the next day. So yeah, I'm happy that we did that, but it did mean that there were 1 or 2 scenes that like I had split up into like chunks, and there was a whole extra scene that I just forgot a chunk of it, and I didn't realize until we were shooting it. And my scripting partner, who was on set as well, being the continuity and the props manager and the lighting assistant and everything else that can possibly be, he said, "Oh, don't we have to shoot all these pages as well?" And I looked at the time and realized, oh shit, I've only got half an hour to shoot. It's a really important dramatic scene, and I haven't planned for it at all. So there was mad scrambles happening like that quite often. But for the most part, I'm pretty proud with how it went. I think I did a pretty good job of scheduling it and leaving time for the more action oriented segments that did require a bit more time to set up and figure out. And thankfully, the cast, they're all pretty much improv comedians that have been working together for many years, and we're all friends, and we all kind of knew each other's rhythms and got along quite well. So they never really needed much direction. They kind of got the style of humor and writing, and they were all kind of on sync and on board. So I never really had to worry about them, thankfully. And if they did have questions, I would just direct them to Tyler. Say, you can ask him about character stuff. I'm too busy trying to find where there are more batteries for this camera that I don't know how to use. So that's kind of how the film shoot went.
That does seem kind of a gift to be able to, because it does come across like the chemistry between the cast. Like that's something that really comes across, like, and it does give it more of a human touch rather than people who've just turned up like gun for hire to just do their job and get out on like 1 day or 2 days or whatever. It gives the film a real warmth, I feel.
Absolutely. I think having friends working off each other is great. It's the most important thing actually that we said going into this was that we wanted to have fun making it. Like we knew it was going to be really hard work, and we weren't even sure if we would pull it off in the end or not. But more important than actually getting a finished product and getting something out there was about learning, and it was about having fun learning. And we definitely had a lot of fun. And there's always going to be like, trying times and getting tired and lifting a lot of heavy objects about and getting in each other's personal space the whole time. But we've all been on tours before around Australia, doing shows and we know what each other's like to live with as well. So that was a real blessing. And it's just a real shorthand between everyone, which meant that we could just smash things out and do one or two takes and move on, and trust that it was solid enough and funny and was going to work in the end.
I think that works particularly well in the film, like, because I mean, you do find that directors like prefer to work with certain cast members over their careers because they just understand how to work together. And
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you get to be able to do that with a debut feature.
It is, yeah. That's the advantage of spending 10 years doing theater and doing improv comedy and stuff. Still working in the film industry, but not in a directorial capacity, and getting to know the local actors and getting to know their quirks and their personalities and how they worked. It was a great help in casting as well, because we were writing all these characters and we didn't really have specific people in mind, but when we thought about who could play these roles, that we could draw on from people that we knew would be up for it, would be up for the challenge. It was great because we could kind of already knew who would slot into what personality, and also who's fun to work with and who would get on and who would play off each other really well. So it was fun to just see that in motion, just put it together and throw it on the screen.
So bearing in mind that you sort of kind of work with these actors and like knowing where they'd fit in, was there a degree of that with writing the script? Were you writing with the intention of certain people in mind, or did you just know who'd be right for the part that you'd written?
Actually, when we were writing the script, I kind of cut out a bunch of paper and drew little stick figures for each character, and we we did it just to help us get personality types. We cast like famous Hollywood actors in each role for when we were writing. So we had like their personalities in mind, or like the kinds of characters that they play. So that and we would just kind of put these little slips of paper with these with the character names and then who plays them underneath them, and put them on the table and kind of combine them in different ways and see, oh, this would be a fun combination, that could be a scene, or shift them around and shuffle them up and go, oh, these two together, I hadn't thought about that combination, that could be fun. So that's kind of how we started like developing it and figuring out what the relationships would be between the characters and like their backstory that kind of informs how the evening starts panning out. And that happened relatively quickly once we kind of settled down on the basic idea and the structure that we wanted.
That's interesting. So really you figure out who they are before you even start on what they do and how they play off each other.
It helps having I think it helped Tyler to have a personality in mind, just because once you've got one or two of them, then you know to think of people that are the opposite of that to put next to them, and then you can figure out their relationships and how conflict is going to arise between them. So that it was just helpful and really fun also to just think about, famous Hollywood actors being in your first film and playing these parts. and then after all that's done, then you go, all right, now we've got these characters and this script. Who do we know that can that can jump in and play them? Yeah, and then they take it and they do something completely different with the character that you hadn't thought of, and it brings something completely new to it. So that's kind of like, yeah, how it panned out. But yeah, it worked pretty well.
That's quite fascinating to me. See, I always try. See, obviously, I've never made a film and I've never directed actors, so I kind of like try and relate things to art forms I've worked in. That kind of there's almost like kind of a hip hop sampling thing where you're taking different elements and combining them to make something else like it.
Sure, absolutely, so yeah. Like we stole liberally from the films that we love, from I don't know, from The Thing and from Body Snatchers, and all sorts of like paranoid thrillers and dinner table comedies and just schlocky gore films. Yeah, we liberally stole from all of them and just chucked them in our film. Just kind of as a love letter to all of the things that we love about these genre films that we wanted to celebrate, and try and have a go at making ourselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like it strikes me that whilst there are these points of reference, like it doesn't feel like a member berries kind of thing. It's not. It's not every shot like kind of look at this. Do you remember when this happened in this film? That's not really what's happening, because it is its heart very much a character thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when you work from character based conflict, it's about sticking these characters that don't belong in these genres into these genres, and then seeing how they would react, and having incompetent characters in like a very high stakes situation. There's something very humorous about that, and about seeing characters that don't do the right thing out of stupidity or selfishness. That I find that amusing, and it just makes the usual tropes that you're used to seeing in a sci-fi horror or in these kinds of films. It means that they don't go down the same paths, because the same choices aren't always made. They always have a weird spin on it, a slightly off kilter spin on it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And as soon as you do that, you're kind of free of the criticism of film logic then. Because like, why isn't the hero doing this? Why wouldn't they do that? Because they're not a hero,
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely moments where you should be yelling at the screen. Like, why don't you just do this? There's even moments where I go, why didn't I think of writing that? They should have done this, because that would have been interesting, or at least it would have made more sense than what they do. But it still makes sense for the characters that we've written, for who they are, and for their weirdly inept plans that don't work out for obvious reasons, and not just from the protagonist, but from the antagonist as well. That was something that we wanted to try. We got stuck on the script for a really long time, figuring out what the source of this conflict that was going to disintegrate the dinner party was going to be, and we had the usual ideas, and it wasn't until we struck upon the theme of trying to keep up appearances and look good for other people, to the detriment of yourself, that we realized, what if that's not just the protagonist, but what if that's the antagonists as well? that gave the conflict not just like a thematic unity, but it gave them a unique perspective that made it feel okay for us to tread those very worn tropes from the genre, because there was just that one little, our unique little spin on it that made it its own thing for this film.
Oh, that's brilliant. So yeah, one thing I mentioned is obviously like around the time you were ready to release this film and take it round film festivals and all, there was some incident involving a virus going round, which caused a few issues.
Yeah. That was very odd. I mean, look, it's just been an odd time in history, a very unique time in history, and so releasing your first film into the world, I think at any time is a unique and interesting experience. But I think doing it during COVID and not being able to travel and meet other filmmakers and just being stuck in my room, and just like clicking refresh on reviews and wondering if anyone watched it virtually or not, because there are no cinemas open anywhere in the world, was it was interesting, a different experience. Still, there was a lot of fun to be had, and it was fascinating the way that these online festivals happened. The all these great film festivals pivoted quite quickly and managed to create these online communities, especially like the Soho Horror Film Festival that made a great online community, because it went for so long over so many weekends, that it was like it became this regular meetup party thing with this wacky group of people, and then this like one Australian dude that's joining in at 4 a.m. So it's been great because I got to virtually travel around the world, and I guess that's less expensive, and I still got to meet and chat to a bunch of great people and talk to other filmmakers, and I also got to see a lot of films that I never would have been able to see otherwise, which I really appreciate, because of the cinemas being closed and not being able to go outside. So it was a great respite.
Yeah. Obviously, I sort of know you through the Soho Horror Festivals, organised by Mitch Harrod, which were the virtual festivals that span off out of lockdown from the Soho Horror Festival, and at one point, I think during like the last year's sort of latter lockdown, like it became a weekly thing where we were doing a couple of films a week, and you really were there for every single one of them. You really were like an important part of like the community that formed.
I mean, honestly, I just like, there were free movies, and who am I to say no to that? Like, because I try and watch everything I can get my hands on, quite literally. So a festival that I got to play at, and there's no way I wasn't going to try and watch everything at every festival that I was involved in. So it's crazy. Last year, I think I watched like more films on average than I have in like the last 2 or 3 years combined, almost. I watched so many films last year, and it was brilliant. I loved it. But yeah, the regular meetups was great. Like a lot of the other festivals, just because they're on for like 1 week or 1.5 weeks, and you meet up maybe once or twice and get to meet other filmmakers and chat. But this one, because it was such a regular thing over such a long period of time, because it was only on the Saturday night, it meant that we get to repetitively keep meeting up after each film and talking and chatting and discussing and getting to know each other. So it became a real fun little online community. And yeah, I loved being part of it. It was great showing people around Perth and introducing my side of the world to the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's probably difficult to explain what was kind of happening to people who weren't involved, but we'd watch these films as part of the Soho virtual thing, and then there'd be like a Zoom after party, which for us would be about 11 o'clock at night, whereas for you, you'd be going out for a swim or something around
Yeah.
Perth, and you did take us on like at a time when everything was locked down and it was chucking it down. We weren't getting outside the houses. It was great to sort of have these little tours around Australia. But but more so than that, I also find that like you've already got like off the back of the Soho More Festival, you've got a small but very very supportive fan base in the UK. Like
That's great. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a great side effect of just meeting awesome people is that hopefully they'll be excited about what you do next. And who knows, maybe it'll help with like the funding applications I'm trying to do now. I'll be like, I've got fans in the UK, so we can distribute there.
you certainly do. You certainly do. Myself included. I've been shouting about Ideal Host whenever and wherever possible, and that's only going to get easier when people can actually access it.
Well, yes, oh my god, I'm excited for that time. Hopefully, it'll be very soon. Fingers crossed. But yeah, can't wait to be able to just have it out there in the world, and doing its thing, and then I can worry about the next thing.
Yeah. And another thing is like I keep going back to the point that you're very much a man of the cinema, but it's the Tarantino quote that normally people say they love movies, they mean they like their movies, but he likes all movies, and I think you are very much a man who likes all movies, and you've given me some fantastic recommendations in the past. The Empty Man you put me onto, which. Yeah. At the time, it was like you and like 7 other people had seen it, and now it's become quite that it's got quite a cult following.
Yeah, it's made it out there. I'm glad.
Yeah, that's on a Disney Plus over here now. I don't know what it's like in other territories. I presume so, since Disney just owns everything everywhere. And I watched another one that flew under the radar that you recommended to me yesterday. The Kid Detective.
Ah, yes. I love that film dearly. It's so beautiful and quietly upsetting to me. The end of that film,
really though, yeah,
is just magnificent, and it's a really fun concept, I think, as well. It's like it's funny and tragic and sad and beautiful. Bittersweet.
Yeah, it's very much got a mixture of comedy, and it's very bleak, but it doesn't lose either side of that.
Yeah, it's this weird black comedy about the loss of innocence. And yeah, it's I think it flew under a lot of people's radars. So those are the kinds of films that I see that, like, when they connect with me, and I don't see no one's logged it on Letterboxd, or no one's posted a review of it anywhere. I'm like, someone should see this film. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure that I put the link to your Letterboxd in the description of this video, because you are the best follower on Letterboxd, because you're watching everything, and your reviews are fantastic, and you come at everything from an interesting, impartial perspective. Like, I can trust a Robert Woods review.
Well, likewise, I like your reviews, because they're always a quick read and funny.
Yeah, I'm not really yeah, go to my Letterboxd if you want a quick giggle. You might not be getting accurate reviews. if you want interesting analysis, Robert Woods is your man for that. So off the back of that, before we go, I would like to know if you've got any tips for things that I should be checking out.
I literally just got back from the cinema seeing Wormwood Apocalypse, which is a sequel to Wormwood Road of the Dead, which is an Australian schlocky zombie horror comedy kind of action movie made for no money. I think it's taken them like a good 8 or 9 years, and they finally made a sequel.
Yeah,
they've got
now
more of a
I
budget
think
this time,
about it.
and it's very silly, but quite fun. It feels like the kind of grindhousey stuff that you might enjoy.
It is. I seem to remember watching the original Wormwood. I think it was when I was subscribed to a service called Love Film, which was one of those where they used to mail you out envelopes with DVDs in, and then you'd send the DVDs back, and then they send you out some more. I remember watching it in that format, so we must be pulling up to like close to a decade between that film and the sequel.
Yeah. I think it was 2014 was the original. So I think it was anyway. It was a while back. Could have been earlier. I know it was shot on the 5D. I'm trying to think in terms of like camera, like DSLR camera usage back when I was using a 5D. So yeah, it's might have been like late 2000s ish, and it's very much the same kind of feeling of just that one was shot, on the weekends over a year with friends, just making up a sequence each weekend and shooting it. And I had never seen the original, but I knew this new one was coming out, so I thought, I'll give them both a go. I should be supporting Australian independent horror films. And the sequel got a full cinema release all around Australia, so hopefully it'll get screenings, or at least a good release in other parts of the world. Studio Kinell funded it, so like they've done something right. Someone liked their original one, which is great. So yeah, that's definitely one to look out for a fun little unique spin on zombies.
I'll certainly be checking for that one. I remember quite enjoying the original again. That one, very, very low budget, independent, but they did a lot more with like practical effects, and I don't think they had like quite the same technology back in 2014 available just to I don't like the term hobbyist because they actually made the film, so I don't like that term, but certainly that kind of super independent.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
With the first one, you can certainly see a lot more of the cracks, which is kind of what I was referring to, that you couldn't really with Ideal Host, but I do like that film. It had a lot of heart to it for the same reason.
Yeah, absolutely. They did some pretty cool little action set pieces for not having any budget, and probably as small as crew as I had, which is like 3 or 4 guys on the camera.
Doing anything involving action sequences when you don't have a stunt cast, for example.
Yes, it's very odd. I ended up doing just a lot of filming things standing still, and then on a green screen, putting in moving backgrounds, making things look more exciting than they are.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think it speaks to your eye for detail. That's very much something that your eye for detail in the editing studio and with the effects it's quite frankly incredible that you managed to pull off what you did. So I understand you're shooting off to the cinema again for the second time today.
Yes, I got 2 more movies to watch today.
2 more movies? Is that at the cinema?
Yep. Yeah, I've got Uncharted and then Blacklight, the Liam Neeson action whatever that is. Another Liam Neeson revenge action thing.
Wow, that is the man's commitment. I mean, I've got nothing but love for it, and I've got nothing but love for everything you do. We're going to be pushing it here over at Kinell Sinister Cinema. All your cult following in the UK will be hyping it up to there, mate. So hopefully we'll be seeing some action from that when it gets released. But yeah,
cheers,
before you go, other than Ideal Host and your letterbox account, is there anything else you want people to put eyes on? Is there anything you'd like to check for? They'd like them to check for?
I edited and did music and some VFX for a friend's web series recently, called Hug the Sun, that I highly recommend checking out. It is incredible. It was so much fun to work on, and again, it's a lot of friends from high school and improv comedy that are in this show, and it's just on YouTube, on a channel called Grouse House Australian Comedy. I think it's well worth looking out. Apart from that, I don't know. I made a musical out of the movie Gravity. If you want to search that on YouTube, that's
really
a bit silly, but
I didn't really divert into too much of your musical theatre background, but you've done like a few of these
enough.
like musical comedy versions of films, but Gravity.
We wanted to. We were doing a fundraiser for a musical that we were touring internationally, and we were just so we were kind of just doing a cabaret, a little like retrospective of all these like songs and things that we'd written before, but we didn't want to give the audience just the same old stuff that they'd already seen, because they're giving us money to. We should be giving them something fun and interesting and new. So we thought, what's like a really small, tiny movie that we can adapt into a musical, and we settled on Gravity because we thought that's hilarious, and also we settled on the idea of what if the people adapting it kind of mistook what the movie was about. Kind of fundamentally didn't understand what the movie was and what made it what it was, and tried to make it a big musical spectacular rather than just one person floating alone in space. So that's what we did. We wrote it in 2 days. My writing partner Tyler wrote 2 songs, and then I smashed out the rest in an afternoon, and we rehearsed it with one of the cast members of An Ideal Host and another improv comedian, and I'm in it, and Tyler's in it. A bunch of our friends are in it in extra little parts. It's a big mess, but yeah, we threw together a 20-minute musical adaptation of Gravity, just for a little fundraiser, and it's on YouTube, and I think it's pretty funny.
Okay, Gravity the musical. I'm certainly going to be checking that out. Like, probably instantly after this, in fact.
It's so silly.
That's brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, Robert Woods.
Thank you.
Ace, nice one. I'll leave you to it. Thanks again.
Brilliant.